What's going on, guys? I just want to do a quick video. We're getting ready for ice season. Everybody's getting excited. I just wanted to share a few of my setups and a few of the things I like to do when I'm chasing especially big crappies and walleye. Probably my two favorite fish to chase during the ice season. Also wipers and occasionally bluegill and perch. We don't have a tremendous amount of perch opportunities here in Iowa, but we do have a few, and when I can get on them, I enjoy that as well. But I'm mostly chasing big crappies and walleye and wipers. But start out if I'm fishing shallower water, I'm usually using my Drastic Fishing power noodle rod. Awesome action, very forgiving. One of my favorite bait combinations is I'll use Crystaleyes Fishing. That's the Aura tungsten jig paired with a Drastic Plastic tiny fluke. Colors, I like whites, shad colors. If I get into colored water, some chartreuse, pink or red. Those are probably my favorite top 4 color selections. Don't get real crazy about colors. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. But you can see they got many different colors. But I like using bigger baits. If you have a lake that has, especially lakes with weeds, I'm going to start out early ice targeting the shallow weed beds, the shallow pockets in the weeds, the edges of the weeds. We have several lakes that have an abundance of reeds. Getting up shallow in those reeds is very productive early ice. And if I'm on a lake that has a lot of shallow cover, a lot of shallow opportunities, that's what I'm using a lot. I'll also mix in different baits, whether it be different kind of bugs or little small thumper tail baits. Got some little fry style baits. Drastic also has a brand new bait coming out I'm excited to use and try, called the Jiminy Cricket. Great looking bait. And then I'll also take and use at JB's Fish Sauce, we have a crappie Ned that we developed for dock shooting for crappies in the late fall, winter, and early spring. You can see it's just a great waxworm style profile. Very subtle action, not a lot of action to it. Depending on the mood of the fish, that's another crystallized tungsten jig from Crystaleyes Fishing. It's a very subtle, not a lot of action to that plastic. It does have a very subtle action to it. If they're being real finicky, little secret I do, I haven't shared a whole lot, but I'm sharing now, is I'll take a regular 3 or 4 millimeter tungsten jig, and I'll take our crappie Neds and I actually slice them thinly in 3 slices. And what that does, if you can see the amount of action that now puts in that bait by slicing it down, which is kind of the same thing for you guys that are live bait fishermen. You're using wax-worms or spikes. The best way to use them, or to get the most bites out of them, a long known secret is you squish them and flatten them out so that it's just a tail or just a skin flapping in the water, and it's got such a different, unique action to it. I've had a lot of success up in the shallow waters and using this technique. For the rest of our lakes that don't have the shallow water weeds, here in Iowa, we don't have a ton of that available. But a lot of times I'm targeting lakes that are man-made lakes, reservoirs, whatever you want to call them. And I'm targeting deeper fish. Deeper is kind of relative. If you would just want to go out and catch numbers, take your kids out, go out with your buddies and catch numbers, you just go out and mark brush piles in anywhere from 12 to 18 foot of water, and they're going to hold an abundance of average size crappies and bluegills. If you want to target larger crappies, the biggest crappie the lakes have to offer, it's going to take a little more work. You got to get out in the basins, find the key structures to find are your sharpest break lines next to main lake structures such as points, flats, pinch points, ditches. But the key areas, everyone I notice is always trying to stay right close to them brush piles because you see more fish, but the truly key areas for targeting these basin crappies are those edges, and sometimes they're only 10, 15 yards long, sometimes they're longer, but a lot of the sweet spots are very small, and it's that vertical drop. And the big crappies and wipers, white bass, they like to use those because they don't have to go far to find food. They can just move straight up and down, feed, drop right back down to that deeper, warmer, more stable water. I've had a lot of success doing it. Like I said, it takes a lot of work. You're drilling a lot of holes. I do not sit still. I'm constantly moving. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. And that's how I catch the bulk of my biggest fish. I'm constantly chasing those edges, those structures. And for that, I'm using larger baits. I like to use anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 inch baits. This is a jig head from the backyard bait shop, just like I would use in open water crappie fishing. This is a Drastic Plastics bait I have here. This is an open water bait that I have cut down to approximately 2 inches. And I can't tell you how many big crappies and wipers and white bass I've caught using this. As far as line goes, that for the deeper water, I'm using my Saki Fishing custom crappie rod. Pretty sweet rod. For line, I'm always going to use the heaviest I can get away with. For the deeper water, I'm using Vicious Fluorocarbon 4-pound test from Vicious Fishing almost exclusively. For the shallow water stuff, that gets a little trickier. For shallow water and my noodle rod, I'll switch to the Vicious Fishing Ice Fishing Mono series. I use monofilament in the shallow water, especially if you're catching good and above size crappie, bluegill, perch, whatever it is you're chasing. I like using mono shallow, just because I want a little more stretch in the line. I want a little more forgiveness. You don't have a lot of line out. I want to pin that fish, and you got to have a little bit of that shock absorption when you set the hook, pin the fish, and get them out of the water. Again, with that, I will start out using the heaviest line possible. 3 pound is my preference. Depending on the water clarity and how pressured the lake is, I'll start downsizing from there. A lot of lakes, especially if they're pressured, you got to downsize to 2 pound and all the way down to 1 pound. We have some clear bodies of water up north that you absolutely have to downsize. And also for the deep water fishing, I'm going to mix in a few spoons. Here are some I picked up recently from Drastic Fishing from Beewood Hooks. These are 16th ounce. I generally use anywhere from 16th to 8th. If needed, I'll also downsize a little 32nd ounce, I believe there. If you see those hooks, that's a pretty awesome little hook they got on these. And I usually do not tip those with live bait as far as crappies are concerned. Bluegill and other panfish, it can sometimes be necessary. I never carry live bait, honestly. With crappies, it's more about getting them to chase and getting them to work for the bait. And that's what I go with. Another tip I want to give you as far as pan fishing, and especially with crappies, is if you have children or guys newer to ice fishing, I always carry a couple extra rods, whether it be for my son or for anyone that I take with me. Less experienced fishermen have a hard time detecting an upbite with our normal noodle rods or my crappie rods. A lot of time those fish grab the bait and they're coming up with it. What these spring bobbers do is they're normally going to have a little tension in them, and when you get that upbite, they're going to, not that drastically, but they're going to come up a little bit and allow them to see something changed, and there's a fish there. So I picked up a few of these again from Drastic Fishing. These are ones that are made by Ice Strong. Great little product. There's a lot of different kinds of spring bobbers out there, but that's when I like to use them, especially for less experienced people. It really helps them see the difference between a normal bite and that up bite. It'll help them catch and land a lot more fish. Then on to my walleye rigs. I got a carbon custom Saki rod for my walleye fishing. My favorite baits is just a number 5 jig and wrap. I work these pretty aggressively. Walleye fishing, same way. Early in the season, you can find them up shallow if you got weeds and weed pockets. And even on the main lake and basin lakes on points and flats and whatnot that have various cover, whether it be rock piles or some brush and whatnot, you can often catch the walleye quite a bit shallower than you think, especially early season. As the season progresses, they'll move out farther. But that number 5 jig and wrap, another one I've had a lot of success on is slab wrap. But then probably my workhorse is just going to be some form of rattle spoon. This is a buckshot here, one of my favorites. VMC has a great one. And I'll just use a minnow head, pinch the minnow head off on those. There's various tricks to changing your hooks out is a good idea on most of these baits, depending on the company. Some have better quality hooks than others. There's various tricks to how to keep your minnow heads on so they don't fall off as often. But other than that, that's pretty much my setup starting out early in the year. As always, early season, everyone's excited, but make sure you're staying safe. I recommend getting a float suit if it's in your budget. If not, having a life jacket, a throwable. I always carry a rope with me. Use a spud bar. Absolutely use a spud bar. Other than that, keep some extra dry clothes and towels in your vehicle just in case something happens. getting out of the water is only half the battle. Stopping hypothermia is hard to do, and it happens fast, so make sure you have spare clothes, blankets, stuff in the car. You never know what's going to happen. I've gone through several times over the years, and it's not fun. And as always, I coat everything I fish with in JB's fish sauce. We got a lot of great panfish profiles, a lot of great profiles for bass, walleye, whatever you're chasing. Make sure you check them out and have fun. Good luck on the ice, and hope to see you guys out there.